Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee meeting of March the 9th. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, I might also acknowledge the fact that we have a number of councillors and our mayor on our Zoom video conference, Mayor Jordan, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Cadwell, and Councillor Frake. Thank you for attending. And also Olia Jurichuk sends her regrets. She's not able to make it tonight. Before we move on to the approval of the agenda, I'd like to just turn it over to our Director of Planning, Antonetta. She has something she'd like to say.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm actually going to hand it over to Bianca to do an introduction to Andrew Bowers, our Heritage intern. Just wanted the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee to know a little bit more about him and introduce this new member of our team.
Good evening, everyone, through the chair. So I want to introduce you guys to Andrew. We are very fortunate to have him joining our team. He is a Willowbank graduate. Willowbank is Canada's premier conservation school. He has also attended the Princess Foundation in London and Glasgow, and has been accepted into the Engelberg Summer School for Classical Architecture in Sweden. And he's also worked on many notable buildings for stained glass restoration, including Massey Hall. So we're very excited to have him a part of our team.
Thank you, Bianca, and welcome, Andrew.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Before I call for an approval on the agenda, I'd like to move an item up underneath our delegation because Bruce McCall Richmond is here on behalf of 14 Main Street East, and it's under reports. It's 6E, just to move things along so that he's not having to sit too long through our agenda. So I'd like to move that up underneath 4A, delegations. Other than that, the agenda remains the same. I just need a mover and seconder for the agenda. Oh, sorry, I have a question. Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to add an item to the agenda it should actually be right under approval of the agenda. Actually, the next item being the nomination of the chair and vice chair for this annual term. Normally, it's right at the top of the agenda. I'd be willing to move it after the delegation if that's more appropriate.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I think I'll speak to the matter. Staff was hopeful we could speak about all of those items under 6C, memo updated terms of reference for committee and chair recommendations. So is the request to move that entire item up?
This is a separate item from the terms of reference, and the terms of reference that are on the agenda are an amended version, and the election of the chair and vice chair is under our current procedural bylaw, and it is to occur at the first meeting annually of the committee. So I've raised this question with the chair that I would like it added to the agenda, and I'm asking the chair if he will approve that addition or not.
So, Councillor Bothwell, we really need to have this on the agenda during the terms of reference to do it holistically. There are some other terms or clauses in that terms of reference that the clerk is concerned about that we should attend to that then. Are you comfortable with moving it to that point in the agenda?
No, I'm not. Are you going to approve having it added to the agenda or not?
Not at this point, no.
So I'm going to do, I'm going to do an appeal the ruling of the chair, please, clerk.
So can I,
Yes, go ahead.
through you, Chair. So there was a clause in the updated terms of reference that needed, that we wanted clarification first before we proceed with the election of the chair. I mean, the election of the chair can happen tonight. It's just we wanted to bring that specific clause and get clarification on that before we do the election, just so you can have that consideration.
I understand, clerk, and I understand what the chair is saying. Although the terms of reference were just updated late last night with the red line version that we received, we have not had an opportunity to review it. I believe that we are still operating as this is our first regular meeting under the previous terms of reference. And I am appealing the ruling of the chair, and I would like a decision on that, please.
So because through you, Chair, the clause is actually in your existing terms of reference.
It's in there. It's saying that it will be done annually at the first meeting.
But it didn't say where in the meeting it had to be.
This is the first regular meeting, so.
You're right, and we're, as the clerk has said, we're going to have it during the agenda where we talk about the terms of reference.
Sorry, Chair, but I've asked for an appeal of your ruling, and the clerk, I'm asking the clerk to administer that.
Sure, I'll
Okay.
do that right now.
Okay,
So I just need a seconder on my motion to appeal the ruling of the chair, and then I understand it's a majority vote, and then we vote on whether the chair's ruling is upheld or not. Is that correct, clerk?
You, Chair, yes, that's correct. I'm just gonna get that motion drafted right now.
so this is the way the motion reads: resolved that the ruling of the chair be appealed to include the item to consider the election of the chair. And that's before the delegation. Is that's what you're stating, right? You want the election to happen before the delegation.
That
Am I
would
clear?
thank you, Chair. That would normally be the order of business. I would ask also that you add chair and vice chair, as both of those are to be put forward.
Got it.
Thank you. And I think I just need a seconder on that, right?
You're moving it. Do we have a seconder? Okay. Kate. Chereau. All right, let me read that again. And are we doing a recorded vote? We'll do a recorded vote. Yeah, so that'll, let me read the motion and then I'll pass it over to the clerk. Resolve that the ruling of the chair be appealed to include the item to consider the election of the chair and vice chair. And that's moved by Councillor Bothwell and second by Kate Chereau.
If the clerk could just confirm how the vote will go. If a yes means that we concur with the chair, or a no, can she explain that, please?
Yes, the resolution is to appeal the chair. So if you say yes, you're overruling what the chair decided. So we will be proceeding with adding this item right after. If you say yes, we're adding the item to consider the election of the chair and vice chair after the before the delegation.
Okay, I'm sorry, because I thought it was, if we're appealing the ruling of the chair's ruling is that it would not be added to the agenda, and then we would be,
You're appealing it, so you're saying yes to the appeal.
okay, thank you.
So Counselor Bothwell,
Yes,
Anne Brabrand,
Yes.
Kate, Cheryl, sorry,
Yes.
Mayor Jeff Jordan,
Yes.
that's carried. Oh, sorry, Counselor Dunstall?
Can I say no?
Yes. That's carried.
So we now have an extra item on the agenda, which is after approval of the agenda and then the delegation. So we need a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda. We have that motion. Councillor Bothwell, Councillor Bothwell and a seconder, Anne Brabant. Thank you. Okay, so that's okay. Yeah, I've got my mic on. So we resolve that the agenda for the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee meeting of March the 9th, 2021 be approved with the following changes. Election of the chair and vice chair after item 3 and move item 6C to after 4A. And that's been moved by Councillor Bothwell and second by Anne Brabant. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so now we're going to have an election. And I guess we need nominations to come forward. Oh, yeah, you want to carry on? Yeah, go ahead then. The clerk would like to run the election.
Through you, Chair. So I'll take the nomination of chairs. Are there any candidates any members that want to throw their name in for the position of chair? Councillor Bothwell?
I would like to put my name forward.
Anyone else?
Well, I'd like to put my name forward, of course.
Okay. I'll now take the nomination for vice chair.
No candidates. Whoop.
Kate or Anne? Kate? Kate, is that a yes?
Oh, good.
Sorry, I'll nominate myself. Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay.
And you missed, thanks, Anne.
So we'll give each candidate 5 minutes to speak as to why they should be nominated as a chair or the vice chair. So we'll start with Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you. I would really feel honored to be the chair of this committee, being very active in the community with heritage and very aware of, from being on this committee now since a little over 2018 and following it since 2014 when I moved here. just the passion that this community has for it, and in our strategic priorities, a priority that we've made as council towards preserving and protecting our heritage. I feel it's just one of the most important things as a councillor that I've put on my agenda to do. And as chair, I think I can help advance that through this committee and working with the very talented and knowledgeable community members that we have on this committee, who are bringing a really wealth of knowledge and experience to help us move our mandate and vision forward. I worked with Olia on our terms of reference and our work plan, and I think I'd like to see that followed through and really make a difference in moving forward the protection of heritage in this community. I like to listen, and I think that's what we're hearing. I think we've come a long ways. We've done a lot in a short time, and I'd like to continue that that momentum to get many more great things done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bothwell. Councillor Dunstall?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Clerk. And didn't have a lot of time to prepare for this, but let me say that I've been on council since 2014 and been a part of this Heritage Committee since 2014. And I was asked to sit on this committee because I own a heritage property in town that I restored and brought back to what it used to be, the old fire hall. I find myself to be a team player. I work well with other people, and I correspond well with town staff, especially the planning department that is intricately involved in this heritage committee. And I enjoy many aspects of this town, not just heritage, but heritage has got a very soft spot in my heart now because of having been involved for 6 years. I think I can bring a lot to the table. I'm a team player, and I enjoy working on this committee as the chair. Was the chair on the previous council as the in heritage, so I'd like to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Before we do that vote, as Kate will be elected as the vice chair, as the only candidate, maybe we'll hear 5 minutes from Kate. Is that okay?
About 1 minute. I also feel very honored to be on the Heritage Advisory Committee, and I would like, by taking this, by offering myself up as a vice chair, I do so because I want to advance in my learning of the procedures that are a part of being involved in the town in this process. I know that I could learn a lot from the planning staff and Dorothy if I could learn under them, and hopefully stay a part of the Heritage Advisory Committee for at least one more term. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kate. So I'm going to go around and I'll ask you that you select either Councillor Bothwell or Councillor Dunstall to be the next chair for the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee. So I'll ask the 3 remaining members. I'll start with Anne.
Councillor Bothwell.
Kate.
Councillor Bothwell.
Mayor.
Councillor Bothwell.
So I think we have Councillor Bothwell.
We shall continue with our meeting now. We have a delegation is waiting out there too. Oh, sorry. I guess we have to move that, don't we? Okay. Apologies. So I need a mover and a seconder for this resolution that Dorothy Bothwell be elected as chair and Kate Sherrill be elected as vice chair for the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee. So who could move that? Okay, Anne. And seconder. Oh, Mayor Jordan. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Okay, moving along the agenda. Delegation, Bruce McCall Richmond, about 314 Main Street East. Bruce, welcome to our committee. We're going to talk about the renderings right after your presentation. So thank you for coming. You now have the floor.
I think since I've been admitted to the meeting, you're referring to me, Counselor?
I am. You're here. Oh, you didn't hear me
Okay,
before.
I didn't hear.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
We had a gap in time, but yes, I introduced you. You are here to represent Branthaven, I believe. And go ahead.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'll keep it very short. I did register as a delegate, more so just to be here to listen to any comments that the Heritage Committee has. My name is Bruce McCall Richmond. I am the consultant planner that has been working on this file, 314 Main Street East, since about mid to late 2018. And I'll just give a brief summary of the project and can answer any questions afterwards. So just so everyone is aware, the planning applications have proceeded to the point of draft plan approval. The zoning bylaw has been essentially endorsed by council, and we're hoping to have that enacted shortly. And further, we've just recently submitted the site plan approval application for the homes on Main Street. So I understand that on 2 separate occasions, these Main Street houses were presented and reviewed by this Heritage Committee. Meetings, unfortunately, I was not at. And I did have a look at the minutes, and I have spoken with staff and my colleagues. And I understand at the previous meetings, the Heritage Committee was primarily concerned with the lot sizes and setbacks at the time. I will just note quickly that at this stage, those are now fixed. Thank you, there they are. Those are now fixed with the endorsement of the draft plan approval received from council. So, at this late stage in the project, I'm here to listen to new comments, happy to hear any new comments, but primarily they should be only with respect to the architectural elevations or facades. And because we're so late in the process now, we're not looking to make any large or wholesale changes to the plans. So I'll leave it at that. As I said, thank you all for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I'll remain on the line just to make sure that if there are any additional comments, I can relay them back to the owners. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. That being said, shall we receive the delegation first before we move on to the item 6E? If I could get a mover and a seconder, and I don't have everybody. Oh, okay. Anne, is that you putting your hand up, Kate? Okay, good. Anne and Kate. So resolved that the delegation from Bruce McCall Richmond be received. All in favor? Thank you. It's carried. So we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which we moved up, which is item 6E, and that's the memo. And do you want me to pass it over to Bianca? Bianca would like to speak on that.
Thank you, through the chair. So yeah, before the committee starts giving some comments, I just wanted to note some of the staff comments, maybe to help direct some of the conversations. So the first I wanted to mention was that there was notable efforts to incorporate compatible materials. There was references to the farmhouse style and the craftsman style. Staff would welcome the addition of some shutters on a few of the renderings. And staff would recommend varying the pane division on some of the renderings just to make it look a little bit more organic. And then we felt that the scale, mass, and form was generally compatible with Main Street, as we do have a variety of scale, mass, and form along that streetscape. So I'll hand it back over to the chair so they can start their discussion.
Thank you, Bianca. Are there any questions from the committee? I cannot see Council Bothwell or Anne right now on my screen. Do you have any questions? Oh, yes, Councillor Bothwell.
Can I ask if Bianca can read the comments that were brought forward by member Olia Juricic, because she sent some comments in with respect to this to be put in the agenda, and if those could be read, that would be great. And then I have some comments after that. If not, I can read them. There, I have them in front of me.
No, I prefer, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can just add, staff have the comments and we're happy to share them on with the consultant at 314 for 314 Main Street.
Yeah.
Well, I think she asked that they be included in, to be read, and I think that the
I
idea.
don't recall that, Councillor Bothwell, at all. That I'd rather they not be read. They've been forwarded.
Okay.
I find that out of the ordinary. So
I'm just wondering how they're going to be included in the minutes. How they're going to be captured, because she has, like, I have some of the similar concerns or some of the, and it's.
would you,
recommendation.
well, why don't you bring up your own concerns, and then I'll get back to you on the
Well,
yeah.
maybe the clerk or Bianca can advise how Olia's comments will be captured for
Madam Clerk.
See you, Chair. It's usually not normal to be including comments of a member that's not present in the minutes. We usually don't take notes or comments of a member that's not present and not participating in this particular meeting. So yeah.
And also, so minutes are to be very brief and to the point. And these are quite, so they're going to go to the consultant and he will have an opportunity to read them.
Okay, so then I'll just bring forward some of the.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Bothwell. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just address some of the same ones, which are, I think that it's great. I think that there's been a lot of attention to trying to make them compatible with the Main Street streetscape. The use of the historic elements, like some of the roofing things, the board and batten is really nice. I think that's a good use. I think that there needs to be a little more identifiable color contrast on the facades. I'd like to see the actual site plan itself, where each of these homes is proposed to be on, to see the setback that we addressed at our last comment stage. It's hard from just looking at the elevations to see which ones are on which lot. And I think there was 3 on one side, 3 on the other. I can't remember. And if the 2 larger ones, roughly what their square footage is, if those are the 2 that are going to be the main feature homes. It's hard to tell from this. Does planning staff have the site plan showing how each will be positioned?
Antonetta, do you have an answer to that question? Are they on?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it was, sorry, Mr. Mayor, sorry. Yes, all due respect to you, Mr. Mayor, but Chair, we are under, sorry, there's an echo. Can someone mute? There we go. Awesome. Thank you. We were advised that the site plan, the elevation, sorry, the setbacks and those things were already discussed by this committee and their recommendations were put forward, and that the elevations are what is left to discuss tonight.
Do you have a site plan that shows which houses on which lot?
Oh, not to my knowledge as of yet. I don't, and Bruce could probably respond to that. I know we've received their most recent engineering submission, but I'm not sure as to the site plan, which house goes on which lot. Bruce, could you kindly weigh in on that?
Yes, no problem, Antonetta, and through your chair. I do have a site plan. The site plan was submitted. I don't know if I have the ability to share screen, but just looking at the image on the screen, I'm not sure I'd be able to quickly relate each elevation to each lot so quickly. And as Antoinette mentioned, I think the purpose of this meeting is to discuss the facades and elevations more so. I would be happy, offline or in a separate forum to talk about the siting again, Councillor.
Oh, no, that's helpful. It's just the massing of the two. I just wondered if they were like the central ones on each side of the entrance or if they're distanced from the heritage home. I just wondered what the distance was of the larger buildings. But yeah, if you can provide that to me, that would be helpful after the meeting, just to get an idea of which is on which lot. And I understand, thank you for being considerate of understanding the setbacks and thinking about those. Thank you.
Any other questions for the 264? Oh, I can't see. Is it, who is it? Kate? Oh, sorry. Kate, go ahead.
Through you, Councillor Dunstall. I just had a few questions, comments and questions. One of the things we're talking about elevations, it's really hard to compare elevations here as individual illustrations. Are they proportionate to each other? Like, for instance, we're talking about elevations, but are these individual illustrations proportionate to each other? Or is the first one shrunk down a little bit and it's taller than it? Like, and it would be lovely to see these elevations in comparison to builds beside it, except for instead of seeing them as individual separate illustrations, because I can't really compare it to anything to be able to ring in on it. There's that comment. And just out of curiosity, I know that in a previous discussion we had, they had proposed 7. Is this 7 homes fronting on? And just for curiosity's sake, I see 6 illustrations. Does that mean we've gone down to 6 fronting onto Main? Just curious.
Bruce, can you answer that?
Yes, through you, Chair, you're entirely correct. There have been many iterations of this proposal. The draft plan approved version has 7 lots. Lot 1 is a corner lot, and these elevations are representations of the 7 houses. So I hope I've answered your question.
So there still is 7 houses fronting onto Main Street.
The corner lot 1, the shorter, we're getting into a very technical planning discussion now, but there are 7 houses on Main Street. Yes.
I was just curious. The only other comment I have, again, and I love that you're mixing and matching the different textures, is the muted tone. If I were to grayscale this, it would all be a very similar tone. And one of the things, even though they're varying more than a lot of examples that we have, we go into a community. One of the things that I have a hard time with when we go into new build communities, it's all beige and it's all like the same colors. I like the variety here, but I just feel like it's still that muted color, which it evokes a feeling of muted. Do you know what I mean? Where I drove up and down Main Street, and again, colors are varying in different neighborhoods, but these just seem very close to each other. Where, and I'm not saying it's better in other communities, but you go up and Main, there might be a white one and then a red brick one, and they're just a different contrast. And the one thing I have, even though it's an improvement on a lot of neighborhoods, I feel like it's still muted, and it's just a comment.
Thank you, Kate. I guess you can take that information back, Bruce, if you want. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Anne, did you have any? I don't see you, so I can't tell if you've got your hand up or not. I guess.
No,
there's
I
someone-
don't. And I,
No, okay.
through you, Mr. Chair, no, I don't have any actual real comments. I actually kind of like them. So I
Okay,
think that they're going to fit in fairly decently compared to other designs we've seen
yep,
onto Main Street.
good. Well, that's a nice comment. And Bruce likes that, I think. Yeah, good. Okay. Do we have a resolution there? Unless I need bigger. Okay. So I need a mover and seconder for this resolution that the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee receive the submitted elevations provided in Appendix A of this memo. Mover, yes, Kate. Thanks, Kate. Oh, thank you. And I got everybody on the screen. Was it your hand going up, Councillor Bothwell? Are you the seconder? Thank you. All in favor of this motion? Thank you. It's carried. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, we're going into number 5, updates. So we're going to turn to Bianca for a verbal update on the Grimsby Beach Land Use Planning Study. Bianca, you've got the floor.
Thank you. So through the chair, I just wanted to give a quick update on the Grimsby Beach study. We're moving along nicely. So we've completed our land use planning study survey and we received close to 800 responses, which was amazing. This will be very valuable information as we continue through the study. So we now have our draft key facts and finding report from our consultants at MHBC, and that has been shared with our technical advisory committee, our stakeholders advisory committee, and council. And we've asked comments to be sent on the draft report, and the consultant is now consolidating all those comments. And then our next step is we're working towards our visioning session. We have been working with our stakeholders advisory committee just to help us make sure that this is something that would work within the community and that it would be received well. And so we're in the process of organizing that event. We'll be having to do that virtually, so it will be a unique situation. We will be sharing more information on the visioning session soon. So we're hoping to have it at the end of the month. And then I think we were going to give Kate an opportunity to talk on some of her items as they have all involved some information and some sites within the beach.
Bianca, could we get just move this motion first before we go into that so that we keep it separate just in case.
Sure.
So Kate has some comments and concerns about some activity at Grimsby Beach, but I thought we'd just get this off the table and have it as a separate discussion right after this, if that's okay with everybody. So I'd be looking for a mover and a seconder to resolve that the verbal update regarding the Grimsby Beach land use planning study be received. A mover, Anne again. Thank you, Anne. And a seconder. Yes, thank you, Kate. And all in favor? That's carried. There we go. Okay, so yes, Kate, we got the email and we want to discuss the concerns you have. So if you, we'll let you take the lead on this.
Thank you through you, Mr. Dunstall, Councillor Dunstall. I'm just going to hide you folks if I can figure out how to do it and refer to my notes if you don't mind. Okay. Just a few, just an urgent note. It's separate from the actual study, so it's a completely different situation. I wanted to bring to your attention that a house in the Grimsby Beach has gone for sale and sold recently, 15 Fair Avenue. It's and the gentlemen that purchased it have expressed interest in potentially down the road demolishing it as an investment property. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me? Sorry, I thought I'd not hidden you guys before, and I didn't know if you'd still be there. Hold on, I'm going back. So the reason I have a huge concern at this moment is not because of the demolition. I actually have an ad here from 1968 of that exact house when it was a bungalow. And at some point it has been renovated and added a second story, and it's the most topsy-turvy house you've ever seen inside. So I'm not too concerned about that, but in the rear of the house is a massive, grand, spectacular butternut tree. And I'm not sure if you're all aware, but the butternut tree is an endangered species right now. I'm not even reading my notes anymore. I'm just going to talk. They're saying that 90% of the trees, of the butternut trees in the next 90 years will be gone. That's where we're at right now. And the problem is that there's a naturally occurring mold that's growing in it that's killing them. And the Ministry of Natural Resources is asking us all to find out where our butternut trees are, give them a call, tell them where they are, put them on the endangered list. And they're wanting to come down. And if you have a healthy butternut tree, that's a completely, they want you to do that too. They want to come down, assess the tree. They want to figure out where the healthy trees are and why they're surviving, why they're not getting infected. And so I reached out to Bruce McKenzie, who is, he's the naturalist that we have representing Grimsby on the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. And he reached out to a fella that our Grimsby consultant team has hired, Michael Henry. He's a botanist, forest ecologist, and he's an expert. And he happened to be in the neighborhood looking at another tree and spotted the tree before we reached out to him. And so he sent Bruce I'm going to summarize because it's a big, giant, long email. But he said, basically, I'm going to summarize it. This is a beautiful tree. And so it goes on to explaining how he was in the neighborhood. And the gist of so Michael he has been accumulating a list of old growth trees, tracking them, and since 2003, I believe. And he considers that tree from over the fence glance a champion tree. Apparently that's the top of the chain. He says that there's just not very many of them left, but there's one right over there. And he would like to move forward in assessing it in some way. And I'd love it. The problem is that we don't have a tree bylaw. And as an owner, I can chop my trees down right now with any issue at all. This is a 200+ year old butternut that is rarer than rare. And it's been there probably before our own history as Grimsby Park. And so I would love to move forward in protecting it. And then do what you got to do. I don't know what the process is. I don't know at all, but I just feel that it's important to protect it in some way. On a separate note, but with the same property, just a couple of years ago, I was walking. I've lived in this neighborhood 20 years, and I noticed there were 7 urns on the front properties along Fair. I never noticed them before. And they look like in just my layman's like opinion, they just look like they were 1930s or something like that. They were this neat rock with a reddish grout. I never noticed them because most of them are covered in vines and overgrown and forgotten. And so I did some research and I found some historic photos. I sent them to you guys, trying to age them, trying to figure out how old they would be. And I've looked through the Hamilton archives to try to find photos. And I did find the one, which I think is a 40s shot. I found another one from the 60s, but I just feel I'm concerned because that house has 2 of them. And I believe I've found 7 of them, and they're all in the same area, which might be on road allowance, because I believe a lot of those people don't own their front porches. But I don't know what the system is or the procedure is, but I just would hate for a new property owner to come in and those 2 urns to vanish. I don't know if there is a way, and I'm not saying I want to haul all those urns off. I want to take them as our own. I'm not saying that at all. I just want to take note of them. I want to do what you have to do to have the owners know that they're a valuable asset of the town. Maybe even assess them for deterioration. On a later note, that I want to talk about in new business is that we also have a 1928 fountain that might be a little bit older than those urns that is showing wear. And I would love some professionals to assess them. Just take them as inventory. And because our Grimsby Beach study, I'm sure we'll touch on it, but we haven't really touched on things like that in the whole entire process of what are our landmarks, what are the things that are valuable, and I don't want to miss them. And I just feel that if people are coming in, and I know that we have a freeze on builds, but as owners of homes, I could easily come in and roll those 2 urns away and we'd never see them again. So that's what I'd love to bring forward as urgent. Those 2 things as urgent to deal with.
Thank you, Kate.
Thanks.
And hopefully, since they've been there that long, nobody's going to move them tonight, especially those who are listening to us. But there's a couple of questions out there, so get ready, or comments. Mayor Jordan, would you like to take the floor?
Thank you, Chair Dunstall. Just a comment to Kate's, or further information to Kate about the butternut trees. There is a $25,000 fine for the unlawful removal of any butternut trees. It's a provincial statute right now, I believe. So that is certainly on the books. That being said, I firmly believe we do need a tree bylaw. We've lost over the last probably 15 years at more than a handful of 200 to 300-year-old trees, and once they're cut down, we're not going to see anything like it ever again. So the trees that are in the 200+ years are certainly irreplaceable, and certainly the tree bylaw that I like the most of any city near us is certainly Oakville's, and Oakville's is one of the most comprehensive. And back when I was on council from prior to 2005, we did try to put forward a bylaw, but it met with limited success. But I'm certainly hopeful that we can do something, certainly even within this term, to get something that is much more comprehensive and protecting of trees and certain other plants that are of significance. So, thank you.
Councillor Bothwell? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just on a note through you, Councillor Dunstall, to Mayor Jordan, just a couple things I missed. To your comment about the 25,000 fine, lovely, perfect. But I, as a new owner, potentially don't even know it's a butternut. I potentially don't even know there's a fine. And you can cut a tree down tomorrow and ask for forgiveness, right? But it's still gone. So that's a huge concern to me. And on another note that I forgot to mention, Michael has accumulated this list, and he is tracking trees. And he specifically said that he felt that tree was, oh God, what did he call it? Oh, it's a term. I can't even remember what the term was, but it's spectacular. And he said he does not have a butternut, and he doesn't have a butternut because butternuts that size don't exist very often. And the fact is, from a marketing standpoint, because that's my background, there's another thing. And we've got a lot of things that we can shine a light on? We certainly do. And that really old butternut where it's it's almost, if you think about it, like it's a dire situation. And all these trees are vanishing. And we happen to have one that's 200 years plus and it's healthy, right? And it's kind of a great story. And it's something that we can be put on the map because he would like to assess that tree and maybe include it on his list because he doesn't have one, right? So, and Bruce Mackenzie said that we don't have trees in Grimsby that have the span or the circumference of the branches alone on that tree. So it's pretty spectacular. Anyways, thank you.
Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Chair Dunstall. So this is reminiscent of what happened with the butternuts that were on the Phelps Central Avenue property. I believe there was 7 of them on that property that were younger trees, and they were immune to that fungus or disease that's going around. They were native butternuts, and they were removed to permit that development to go in there, and were offset by having the developer plant a substantial number of them up in Smithville somewhere in some undisclosed location where they were to be cared for, nurtured, and watered in perpetuity by whoever the private landowner is, which we will never know. So we lost 7 native butternuts there. The potential is that we lost some more butternuts on the Nixon Hall property, which we'll never know because some developer or whatever came in and took all the trees down off the property except for a few. And I think that although there was an agreement for an arborist to do a site plan evaluation of the trees, they were taken down before that was commenced. I believe there are still some baby butternuts on that property, which begs the question whether there actually had existed any adult butternuts on that property that we can now not confirm. When that happened, I contacted the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, who is responsible for enforcement of the Species at Risk Act. And it was unfortunate because with COVID, and in speaking with him, having an officer come out or someone come out to investigate whether there were butternuts impacted by that clear cutting after the fact was not possible just because of COVID issues. And then there was also some concern that they may not have had staff that could identify butternut or actually come out and make that diagnosis available. So I think what that's telling me is that as Kate mentioned, it's the take it down and ask forgiveness. And this is a tree that we know we have to protect. We've heard that. She's had some great feedback here on how spectacular it is. And I think we have a duty to protect it. And we have a duty to protect it now, knowing that that property is, we've identified it, that property is for sale or has been sold. And just like the one on at the James Willison Grout Nell's house on the corner at 133 Main, we have that tree protected as a heritage tree. I'd like to make a motion, and I know we're undergoing the Grimsby Beach study, and I know all kinds of good things are going to come out of it down the road in a year or so, or 2 years, we don't know. In the meantime, we can act on this now. If we don't act on it now, there's a potential we could lose it. So I think that it would be prudent for us to look at, since it's been brought to our attention as being so significant, actually asking staff to have an arborist assess it like that Michael fellow did, or someone else, and come back to committee with the potential for an intention to designate the tree on its own, not the property, the tree. So I think that would be something, if we can put a motion forward to ask staff to assess the tree and determine the age and then condition, et cetera, and to bring forward next steps to look at intention to designate the tree.
Thank you, Councillor Bothwell. Antonetta would like to address that, I believe.
Sure. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I have a series of ideas around this, but I'll start by saying I too have tried to designate trees in the past. And I was advised by legal counsel at the time that designation only applies to real property and you cannot just designate the tree. So unfortunately, it's not as easy as it seems to get real protection to the tree. That said, I think there are a number of steps that we can take, and I'll outline just some of the ideas that we already, was already in the works, but maybe, Kate, as an immediate measure, we can write a letter to the property owner telling them that they do have a butternut and alerting them to the $25,000 fine, but also connecting them with resources that may help them understand how best to care for the tree and things of that nature, because who knows, there may be some trimming eventually that they want to do. The more we can educate them and get them really excited about having that tree on their property, that's a really good way of proceeding. Another thing is that we have asked the ministry to assess our butternuts here in Grimsby, so we can follow up with where our request is with the ministry. They also did convey a similar thing, Councillor Bothwell. Due to COVID, they were experiencing delays, and there were a series of other things that they did tell us, but we can follow up on our request. One thing that we can do is we can, in terms of the urns or those stone circular items you were referring to earlier, Kate, what we can do is list those parcels and then identify those structures as the heritage sort of attribute on the property. I have done that with old retaining walls and things like that in the past and seen some success. It's mixed, but we could certainly do that as an avenue. And then the other thing is the tree preservation bylaw is something that is we are currently exploring. I actually have some co-op students looking into it, and they're looking into Oakville, Caledon, Mississauga, a series of others that we think have really good exemplary tree preservation bylaws. I'd be interested to know why it didn't take off here in the past. I'd also have to circulate, talk to some of my colleagues in respective departments, Parks and Rec, Public Works, to see if this falls on any of their work plans as well. But I also want to say that one of the early drawbacks that our research is showing is that it does take quite a bit of staff resource to administer a tree preservation bylaw, because everything over a certain diameter, depending on the bylaw, has to come to staff for approval. So I think we'd have to do some of that work to see if it's possible. So those are some of the actions. I think a letter to property owner, circle back with the ministry, list the fair properties that have those structures on them, identify those as the resources that we're talking about, and then again, our continued efforts with the tree preservation bylaw.
Do we need a motion for that, or just that what Antonetta has told us, you'll move ahead with that?
Yeah, staff can report back at the next Heritage Committee meeting, if that's agreeable.
That agreeable, everybody? Yeah, good. Okay. Thank you, Antonetta. So we'll move along to the next item on the agenda under updates, a verbal update on 328 Main Street East, the new register. Bianca, that's you again.
Thank you. So through the chair, so this property came to our attention when we were not on hold with our meetings due to the second wave of COVID. So this is a property along Main Street, and we had received several calls from interested parties asking if it was protected and if it could be demolished. So we felt it was part of our role here to bring this forward and bring it to the attention of council. So this property was added to the Municipal Heritage Register. And since that, we've met on site with the property owner, gone over everything, and they are comfortable with being added to the register. Notification has been sent to them, and they have let us know they are retaining it as a single family dwelling, which we are happy to hear.
Any questions for Bianca on that? Oh, good. Just need a mover and seconder on that we resolve that the verbal update regarding 328 Main Street East, the new register inclusion. Kate, you'll move that. And a seconder. Thank you, Anne. All in favor? That's carried. So we'll move along to item number C, verbal update 133 Main Street East, the update on the archaeological pits. Thank you, Bianca. Here again.
Thank you. So through the chair, I just wanted to give you guys a quick update on this one. So staff have consulted with the property owners, and the property owners have gone out and filled in the archaeological pits. And we are continuing to monitor the site, and we are looking forward to this warmer weather coming up, and we're going to be going out and supervising the installation of the glass and the epoxy. We have asked that the applicant put it on if there's movement already existing on the foundation, which is typical for heritage buildings. We would just pick an existing mortar joint and attach the glass and epoxy on there, and then we can just get an idea if it's moving at all, which will let us notify them that maybe some additional compacting might be required. So that's just an update there. And we also have some correspondence from them in the agenda. I don't know if anyone has any questions about that item.
Seeing none, if I could get a mover and a seconder on that item, that we resolve that the verbal update regarding 330, sorry, I like to put 3 out there. 133 Main Street update on archaeological pits. Can we move that by Anne again? Anne, thank you, Anne. And Councillor Both. Oh, do you have a question now, Councillor Bothwell?
Yes, please. Just
Yeah, sure.
is there any further archaeological work going to be done on that site? If is there another level of archaeological work that they're required to do? Just double, Bianca knows.
Through you, the chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so we've they have done the full extent, which is the stage 4. And as for those pits, they're done. There may be other spots on the lot that need to be continued archaeology, but those pits are finished with, so they were able to fill those in.
So that, I guess, thank you. That was my question, is if they're going to do more disturbances on the site, and if there's any timeline, if you know that there's any other level of, or any other spots that they are required to go and do more work.
I believe they've done all the mandatory spots, and it was up to them to continue if they chose to.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I'll second that motion, Chair.
Thank you. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Okay, next item is item number D, notices of intention to designate and objections. It's going to take a few more minutes. Bianca, you want to go through that?
Thank you. So through the chair, so I do have an update for you guys on the designations. So the objection period is now ended, and we have received 4 out of 6 objections to our designations. Staff continue to field questions and concerns from property owners, and have received an overwhelming response of confusion due to misinformation in the community and misinformation given about the intention of the Ontario Heritage Act. It is a concern to staff, as this misinformation is causing significant strain on heritage property owners, and staff want to encourage that the Heritage Committee help to facilitate meaningful conversations with the community to help create a more positive reaction to heritage protection within the town. It is recommended within the Ontario Heritage Toolkit that the Heritage Committee members help to bridge this communication with the community and help to support property owners. We have been actively working with heritage property owners to help provide them with support for heritage conservation, as well as understanding of the actual Ontario Heritage Act. With the proposed Heritage Conservation District along Main Street, it is integral that the committee start work on having these meaningful, positive conversations, or unfortunately, this may be a preview of what will happen when we pursue pursuit of designation under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act. I don't know if anyone has any questions about that, but we will be moving forward with the bylaws for the 2 that didn't get appealed. And then we are preparing a report for council with all of the appeals, and it will be up to council to make a decision if we will be going to the Conservation Review Board.
Questions? Anne, you had a question?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Bianca, can you share with us who did not object to that?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention which one. So we received objections from 8 to 10 Ontario. So that was the duplex there. 104 Main Street East, and that's the heritage home next to Centennial Park. We received 141 and 147 Main Street East, which is the current Coles Florist location. And we didn't get appeal from 224, which is the Udell House, and we amended the bylaw to include the ice house, the carriage step, the tree. And then we also didn't get an appeal from 130 Main Street East. So we'll be moving forward with those ones.
Thank you, Bianca.
No problem.
Councillor Bothwell?
So I think I hear what you're saying, Bianca, is that we need to do a better job of communicating what our heritage register is, how important heritage is to the town, and what that means to our community. The brochures that you guys have created, which is really great, on what the heritage addition to the heritage register means. Is that something that can be circulated when we send out additions, and make sure that goes with the letter to the homeowner and the property owner, what that means as well with that brochure? And I think it's great that it's on our work plan, or is on our current work plan, that we look at education and outreach. So I think working with the planning staff, we can come up with a social media strategy, some types of ways to communicate the importance of protecting our heritage, and just that being on the register is not limiting, and it doesn't provide any restrictions. And I think that that's going to be really important that we do that, and then we try to get an appreciation for the homeowners of what they're holding on to, and just how important it is to the community. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that you're saying that we need to do more work, and I'm looking forward to that. And I think that we can make that a priority, so that we get some positive messaging out there as we move forward in the Main Street East study, and as it commences, as you say. So thank you for that, and looking forward to working with you on getting that positive messaging out. Thank you.
Yes. I just wanted to know through the chair on the brochures. So I know we had discussed at the last meeting that we wait for some of the Bill 108 changes, and I am going to give an update on that. But essentially right now it's until further notice. The current Ontario Heritage Act stands. So maybe as a proactive measure, we can go ahead with the register brochure, and we can always change the language when the update comes out. And then, yeah, so we do have the letter going out, which explains it, but I think the brochure will give them a little bit more comfort. And I do find when I do speak with these homeowners, they are very receptive once they understand what's actually happening to the property, and which is another benefit, is we do have the conservation background, so we're able to give them a lot of advice on site, which I think they're very receptive to. And we are seeing some benefits coming from the communication, so I think it would be received well.
Thank you.
Kate, is your hand up? Yes. Yeah, go ahead, Kate.
Through you, Councillor Dunstall. To just in addition to what Dorothy has asked or has said, because before she said that, I had a question. I thought, how can we as the advisory committee do you have anything additional to what Dorothy has suggested that we can help in this, like for a positive message? The reason I ask is I understand completely, like I know with Grimsby Beach in 2015, when the town planning staff originally approached us, it was wholeheartedly rejected. And a lot of it was miscommunication and mistrust. And it took a long time to bring people to the side to understand that it wasn't what, but that was a lot of hand holding. That was, Michael had suggested creating a group of residents that could inform residents of the truth and be clear. And it was a lot of work. I'm wondering, I mean, we are focusing a lot of those designations on Main Street East. And I do know that there is already an existing group that is I'm just wondering, is there a way to create a group that helps foster that relationship, that makes people, like, I don't know if we could partner with that existing group or create our own, but I just like, that's how we convinced a community to go down the path we're going on Grimsby Beach when they were against it. So I don't know if there is other examples or suggestions that you are asking us to implement, or I don't know.
If I might add something, thank you. And I think that we're living in a world right now that there's a lot of misinformation out there about a whole lot of things. But what I find is education is the key. And I don't know if we could have a workshop on an annual basis that we would put on as a committee to invite people that have heritage properties or that are on the register to come and talk to us and have an informal conversation with staff here to give us the education that we need to offer to people. It is, and I remember in 2015, Michael was very concerned about Grimsby Beach and how people would react. He was, he just didn't know how to approach it. It is a challenge. But there's, and I don't want to discredit the industry, but the Real Estate Association, I've had real estate agents tell me myself, by designating a building, it's going to devalue it. And there's no, how do you prevent somebody from giving their opinion out there in this world that we live in? It's a shame. And so I think the key to that is, again, education, and having a workshop once a year on that is a good idea. Getting a citizens group together, we're not all experts. I don't want to be part of a citizens group for anything, because some of us are better at it than others. And then when you get everybody together, you're going to get a mixed bag of tricks. So sorry, that's just the way I see it. So I think we need to have professional advice. Our planning staff are the experts. Having a workshop or a meet and greet on a very friendly basis so that people could become more accustomed to it would be an approach to take. But we need to get out there and put a positive spin on it, because a lot of misinformation, and it continues, and I'm sure it's a problem in a lot of communities. Dorothy, or Council Bothwell, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Dunstall. I think, you have to be cautious. You made that statement about that you received information, that somebody told you that by designating it would devalue your property. And I think that's perpetuating that misinformation. And I think Antonetta can speak to this, because there are a lot of published reports on Shipley and a few others that have talked about the significant increase in property values in designated in areas that where homes are designated in the care and where they've been taken proper care of. And I think that we need to, like, just stating that is misinformation. I think that the true story is that, in fact, the pride of community and the value of a heritage property increases the real estate in a community. And I'd like Antonetta to speak to that. And the concern about insurance is perpetuated by a few in the insurance industry, when it's been disputed too as well, that it's only where there are properties that people are unable to do the upkeep in a home, and they've gone over their head, and it's caused the property maybe to not have been kept up to the standard it needs to be with knob and tube or whatever. And those are impacts that are not relative directly to the heritage designation itself. It's directly related to the care of the property. So I think we have to be really, really careful of how we saying those types of things. And I'd like Antonetta to speak to that, because there's a lot of debunking that needs to be done about that.
Yep. Through you, Mr. Chair, I can speak to all those items. I'll also say, I think sorry, I need someone to mute.
Oh, sorry.
I can just hear myself back and it's very difficult. Thank you. One of the things I interpreted what Councillor Dunstall said to me, we can't control what other people say about heritage. So it's almost when you call a private real estate agent, I heard that so many times. My realtor told me, and yes, there is a lot of debunking that has to happen with heritage. And certainly there are varieties of tactics that we could use to do that. The truth is people are afraid and they call us telling us they're afraid. And so we sympathize with them and we understand that. And sometimes even if we, like Shipley's work is, for example, referred to a lot in terms of value, but it's right now considered by some people, that's a very outdated piece. And so, you know, I think that for everything we put out there, we have to be prepared that some people will also find the opposite to be true, whether they're hearing word of mouth or vice versa. That said, I do have a series of ideas of what we can do. So Kate, I mean, besides getting out there and speaking to the community, which is always the best, we at every farmers market, our Heritage Committee members had a presence and they were talking to people, they were out on the street, they were really active. Our Outreach and Marketing Committee in the past, that was our vehicle to really get designations, and we got people proactively seeking designation, but it took us close to a decade for that culture shift to happen of sort of constant investment in the committee's presence in the community. And also, I think it really went a long way where people weren't afraid of the committee. So I think there is some perception out there that if something happened, if they get designated, that they're going to have to go through so many hoops, so much red tape that they're very adverse to it. That's what we're hearing on our end. But some ideas are hearing testimonials from people who do own heritage properties here in Grimsby and have had really positive experiences with staff, and we have had that. Certainly the open house and workshop is a great idea. Those brochures, that was the very intention behind those brochures. That's why staff had created them in the first place. Another tactic I've used in the past that's been very successful is a word of merit. Like, start recognizing people who do a great job protecting their heritage homes and call that out, you know, with a presentation with the mayor, heritage committee members, etc. We also hear a lot about grants. People expect that, and I think, you know, this was a tactic relied on in the past in Grimsby, is like, if you designate your house, you're going to get this much amount of money. And unfortunately, you know, we have more requests for grants than we do money in the grant budget. So I think part of that is building the reserves to ensure that we have grants that we can sustain over multiple applications. So we had, for example, in the past, I operated a grant program where submissions were due by a certain date. They were evaluated on the public realm facing elements of the heritage components they were looking at, and then the grants were awarded in a very, I would say, equitable way. Another thing is, yes, the insurance piece is out there, but we're also hearing from people that they are being denied insurance because their home is heritage designated. And we try and say it shouldn't be because it's designated. That's actually considered illegal. However, and even if they say our knob and tube is updated, we'll say, well, they can only really not insure your property if it's the knob and tube, and they're worried about other pieces that doesn't necessarily is associated with a heritage home, can just be associated with an old home. However, that said, there still are many insurance providers refusing to provide insurance, and we can't force them to do that. And that's why that was a topic at the National Trust Conference, and we're following up with that. The other thing that we could do is, we actually just had a meeting today about our heritage presence on the website, and we could post articles and resources and things of that nature that debunk some of these myths up there. Again, my only concern is some of that research is now becoming out of date, and there isn't someone who's sort of taken the torch from Robert Shipley here in Ontario. But certainly there are some Ontario examples. Donovan Wright-Kima is an excellent researcher on the impacts of heritage preservation, and we can post some of those articles to our website. So there's a myriad of strategies, but it's ultimately people's perception and the negativity that is out there about heritage, and that it's very oppositional right now. And I know Bianca deals with a lot more heritage homeowners on the daily. So if she wanted to lend her experience in terms of what they're saying, that could help the committee figure out how we're going to try and deal with this. Bianca, did you want to share some thoughts on what people are saying there?
Sure. I think you're muted, right? Okay. So through you, the chair. Yeah, I have had situations where they're a little bit nervous to come even before the committee, just because they, on the onset, we tell them with a registered building, there's no additional issues unless you go to demolish. And then we have situations where we go back to them with additions and things like that, with heritage fabric being removed from the site. So we're trying to create that relationship with those homeowners so that they feel comfortable to come to us and share what they're proposing to do. And I find that when they're more comfortable, they're more receptive to our ideas for compatibility. And just creating that narrative, I really find is helpful, is that, you're the heritage property owner, you're the steward, you're taking care of a significant building for our community. What can we do to help you make this easier? And I find they're really, really receptive to that. And we have been offering consultations where we'll go on site and, they might have a crack and they have no idea where it's coming from. And we take them through the whole process and make them understand you don't have to get a structural engineer out here today. Here are some interim measures that can buy you some time. And so we're just trying to help create that relationship so they're not afraid to come to the town, and that they're coming to us and we're giving them the resources and we're building that trust back. And for the register, I've had people come with the misinformation, but then when I sit down with them and I tell them, your street cohesively has an amazing collection, and we're trying to maintain the way that looks, and you picked that street because you love the way it looks. And then by the end of it, they agree and they're thankful that that exists. But just creating that relationship with them so they're not afraid to come to us, I think would be really beneficial, especially our designated properties. And we're slowly getting there. So I just want to encourage those positive conversations. And I know through the toolkit, they outline that it's really good for the Heritage Committee to get involved with the community, because then they see you during the application process and they're more comfortable with you and they're more receptive to your ideas. And I think there's a lot of opportunity, and meeting some of the homeowners, they're lovely, and you find that they love their building more than we do. So they are very open to our suggestions and trying to make it easier for them. So those are just some of our suggestions moving forward on that. And I like the idea of that open dialogue and giving them an opportunity to speak to that. So.
Thank you very much, Bianca. Seeing no further questions, I have a resolution. Be it resolved that the verbal update regarding the notice of intentions to designate and objections be received. I need a mover. Councillor Bothwell. And yeah, Anne. All in favor of the motion? Thank you. That's carried. Moving on to the next item. This is the verbal update for Bill 108. You've kind of opened that up already, Bianca, but do you have anything else you want to add? Go ahead.
Through you, the chair. So just to echo my previous comments, we've received confirmation from the ministry on the Bill 108, and it was expected to have the changes done in January 2021, but they have confirmed that due to COVID, they have delayed it and they have no new date set. So as of now, until further notice, the existing Ontario Heritage Act stands, and I just wanted to confirm that means all appeals will be heard by the Conservation Review Board. That's all I have on that one.
Seeing no questions, I have a motion here to resolve that the verbal update regarding Bill 108 be received. A mover. There, Kate. Thank you, Kate. And a seconder. Thank you, Anne. All in favor? It's carried. Moving on to our next item 6, reports. Item A is the memo on demolition control bylaw and municipal register inclusions.
Thank you. So through the chair, so this item here was part of the council endorsed recommendation made on December 21st for staff to explore a demolition control strategy. And part of our strategy that we are proposing is a mass inclusion to our municipal heritage register. All of the properties included in the appendix of that memo have all been preliminarily reviewed against the Ontario Regulation 906. And I tried to, above all the booklets, kind of put the rationale for each of the items and why they were being included. We took our time going through all of them, both individually, but as collections and how they contributed to different streetscapes. So we were able to move forward with 145 properties, which would be a 65% increase to our current municipal heritage register. And myself and Councillor Bothwell both attended a seminar that really talked about being proactive with your heritage rather than reactive. And we felt that in some situations, the demolition control bylaw could be reactive, as we would be evaluating the properties kind of like a net to catch any properties that weren't already having status under the Act. And we wanted to be more proactive. So we thought that these properties should be given status under the Ontario Heritage Act as registered buildings. So just to make it easier for your review, I did break them up into booklets. So I can touch on each of the ones, just like a general idea of why each booklet was included. So the Main Street East and Main Street West booklet were identified as attributes within the culture heritage landscape. This can also be an interim measure while we do our study on Main Street East, because all of these houses along Main Street East could potentially be considered attributes within the Heritage Conservation District. So it gives us enough time to evaluate each of those properties instead of, we don't know how long the designation process can take. It can take upwards of 5 years. So we just wanted to make sure that in the meantime, we had some protection for these buildings. So that's the Main Street East portion. And then the Main Street West, those have been included again because they were within a CHL and they contributed to that cohesive corridor of farmhouses. And we did break out into a fruit barn booklet, but those would be along that street as well, as the fruit barns contribute to the culture heritage landscape as an attribute as well. So that's that one. And then I included the Robinson Street booklet because there's 2 houses on Robinson Street that were the first pressed concrete construction in Grimsby, and one is designated, one is not. And many of the houses along that street have pressed concrete foundations. So together they could really make for a great heritage conservation district in the future. So I thought while they were, all intact, while we had this amazing collection, we might as well give them status under the Act so that we can evaluate them. We also have along Robinson Street a direct relation to the Gibson family, as the builder of the pressed concrete brick structures was a nephew of the man who founded the Gibson Quarry. And he also supplied Grimsby limestone to the Welland Canal. So there's a lot of association along that street. So I felt that they all should be retained for us to do further review. And then the Grimsby booklet, it included buildings in vulnerable locations that require protection until significance can be exhaustively reviewed against the Ontario Regulation 906. We included properties that were in areas with contextual value, such as Ontario Street and surrounding properties, Park Road North. So those areas were included. And then as well, ones identified within CHLs throughout the town, and ones that had significant architectural details. And of course, this is not an exhaustive list, but it's a start. And just to echo the statements you guys were kind of having earlier with the trees and the planters, we really want to save it before it's gone. So by giving it the status, it gives us an opportunity to do that. So I don't know if you have any questions about that.
Any questions for Bianca? Yeah, Kate?
Through you to Bianca, Councillor Dunstall. I was very excited to see this 145 homes, buildings. I had already gone ahead and looked through trying to map out the downtown core, which is zoned for intensification, and noticed large chunks not protected. And this touches on a lot of those buildings, which was very exciting for me. I could take them off my list. The only concern I had, and again, it's because I don't know, is that that's a big list. And I'm wondering what is your percentage? I know that I know number 10, the original apartment building that was built as apartment building rejected. I know number 38 and 36 Ontario Street were not wanting to be. What is your I don't want to lose you. We just got you full time. I don't want you to be working all day trying to fend off folks on this list. Is this what is your percentage approx that do you feel that you might get a lot of? And I know that you send out your 145 letters, and then they can dispute, and it's in their ballpark. It's under their responsibility to explain to you why they shouldn't be on the list. But do you feel that this is going to take up a lot more time? Because I'm going to give you 145 names for next month. No, I'm just joking. But do you feel that this is going to occupy your time?
Through you, the chair, that was something we did think about. And I took a lot of reference to Kidd Avenue, where we added several properties. And I found when we designate one, or we pick one as a targeted, it seems more targeted. But as we went with Kidd, we picked like a blanket approach where we picked the whole area. And I felt that they were way more receptive to that because they didn't feel like they were alone in it. And so I felt by not targeting a specific area in the town, but doing a general selection of these properties that I'm hoping will be received well, that kind of this notion of we're all in this together. We all want to conserve our heritage. And I'm hoping that everyone will see that this is a positive thing and that it's so important to members of the community, because we've seen it in the 800 responses on the survey and other surveys that have been done through the town and the strategic priorities. It's so important to the community. So I'm hoping this will be that notion of we're all in together. But the objection period does not have a time frame, and they can submit it and we can work through them, but they have to give us concrete reasons why they would like to be removed. And that'll kind of give us an idea too, if we think that it is valuable enough to be designated. So I would rather, I think, go through that process than receive a demolition permit on an estate dwelling or something that contributes to the landscape and then not have ability to do anything. So I think that would be my choice in that regard, but there's no timeline. So we can kind of spread it out as they come in.
I'll also build on Bianca's response if I can to say, like, our hope is to send out a letter, the brochure that staff had made, as well as offer to host a workshop, like a Q&A, so that we dispel any myths about heritage for these 145 property owners. We were thinking that they could submit all their questions in advance, but we're going to lean into all of this work because we'd rather do this than be faced with a demolition permit where then we have no action for recourse to even delay the demolition enough for us to do a proper evaluation. And I think, you know, now that we have the staff resources, we've been asking the committee to help out with this, but now that we have the resources, really, we made this our priority. And I just want to commend both Bianca and Andrew for working tirelessly to look at these 145 properties, prepare those property index cards, and really demonstrate the commitment to conservation of Grimsby's heritage.
Thank you. Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Chair Dunstall, through you to Bianca. I appreciate all the hard work that you guys have put into this, and I understand your intention as to how you've tried to group them. I just know from being chair of planning that every time an address came up for the register, I got questioned. How did you decide that one? You know, what logic did you use? Well, it's a preliminary cursory view, whether it has a rubble stone foundation. Oh, well, like, is that? So I was questioned every single one. So I'm understanding your logic. I just hope all counselors do when they see 140 of them come forward. But what I did notice when I went through the index cards was there's some gaps in some information. So I just want to make sure if we move forward with this resolution tonight to have them all get put forward, I just want to know that you're confident that the information on the index cards is complete, because I did find that there's spots missing some stuff about what the current use is. I noticed that there's some, it's minor, but a spelling error such as wrought iron was ROT instead of WROUGHT, those kinds of things. It just, for the sake of being, you know, a little detail minded, I guess that's where I'm coming from. If it maybe needs one more pair of eyes looking at it, just to make sure that those types of things are caught. And I noticed that there were 4 properties on Robinson Street, number 4, 15, 18, and 40, that were included in the town's index cards as well as in the Robinson Street booklet. So I think there may be more duplication in there. And I'm just wondering if maybe you can just double check that they're not duplicated within one booklet and the other booklet. So I think I'm hesitant to bring it forward like this without maybe another pair of eyes or a little more time looking at them. And if you guys want to do that, that's fine. If you're comfortable with them and cleaning it up before it comes to committee of the whole, I'm good with that. I just from a cursory view, because I didn't have a whole lot of time to read 140 of them, but I went over and I found a few things that I just thought, I want to make sure they stand up when the resident receives that information, that the index card is complete and accurate. There was also a few in there on Ridge Road that have a Beamsville address, and we know that, even though there are people and their lot description is Grimsby, and that's part of that postal code cleanup thing that the clerk is working on. So I think we just want to make sure that we're clear that those are not Beamsville residents, that those are actually Grimsby properties. I don't know if there's some way just to make sure that that's really clear too. So, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'll let Bianca and Andrew speak to the due diligence done for the properties. But as for where we don't list whether it's a commercial use or residential use, that's not a requirement under the Act. We will not be held to that standard to list a property. That's just additional information. Everything that is required under the Act, the legal description, the attributes, et cetera, that is all on the index card. So we're confident that's just additional pieces of information that we have in there, but they are not required, nor will any of the properties be judged on the lack of that information or its inclusion on the index card. I want to make that clear. We followed the Act to the T.
Do you think that there might be some double checking though on whether there's duplication that needs to be done?
So through the chair, I can speak to all of those. So the properties we have confirmed on 30 Road are within the town of Grimsby. So those are our buildings, and they're actually quite old farmhouses. So I thought I was really happy to get those on the list. And as for the Robinson Street, I did remove them from the Robinson Street booklet because I wasn't sure if that idea of a district would extend down that way. So I really wanted that Robinson Street booklet, especially with my rationale at the top about the HCD, to be specific to South. So they're not included within the Robinson Street booklet. Those are for us. Those ones are in the general. So I can specify that in the booklet that it's for the South. And I am confident in my recommendations for all the properties that were included. Many of them are within culture heritage landscapes. So all of those are attributes and they all contribute to the CHL. And I know moving forward, we'll probably include those CHLs within our official plan, and they will become even more stringent at that point as contributing attributes. And I can speak to any of the properties for my rationale for including them. And as Antonetta said, all of the information required is within there, and the property information, we can update that in wrought iron. We can definitely do a control find on that one. So
That's
I'll also add, thank you, Bianca, that these are intended to be a start to the file. So if the Heritage Committee seeing some of these properties, it's almost alarming that they weren't on the register beforehand. But if the Heritage Committee wants to take and do some research, if they can, this is the start to then we build up the file, and then we have enough research there to decide whether or not we meet criteria 906. So even if you need more time to do your own research or your own investigation, if you come across anything that might be helpful to the properties, please send it our way. We'll save it with the file, and then that just makes designation easy. So it's meant to be sort of this iterative living process. And I just want to state that it's not a stagnant document.
Thank you, Bianca and Antonetta. Just if you want to just double check, because when I looked at the index cards, number 4, 15, 18, and 40, Robinson Street were still in both booklets. So if you've removed them since the weekend, then that's fine. But I did notice that they were duplicated. So just take maybe one more peek. I know 46 and 48 are only in the town, but there's like 4 of those 6 that were between the 2 of them. So that's great. I appreciate your explanation. I'm going to put you on the hot seat at the committee of the whole when they ask, how did you come up? Because you have a great explanation. I totally will buy it, and I think you'll have everybody else get your buy-in. I appreciate Andrew's hard work on this as well, and the group. And I think communication, education, Antonetta, like you mentioned, I think having that workshop or having these people involved in some type of a Q&A in the nearest future possible would be a great idea, and holding that type of an education component as soon as we can would be great, just because maybe we'll lessen the workload for poor Bianca and Andrew with the objections if we can get that in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. If I might ask a question, I see nobody else is asking a question. I'm just curious about downtown, and you've added several buildings downtown to the registry. I thought a lot of those buildings were already designated, but they're not. I'm just wondering why we're not doing it as a block, the whole between Christie and say Elm Street, why we don't have them all on the registry. Is there a reason you decided just to pick a few at this point in time?
Sure.
Go
so I
ahead.
can speak to that. So through you, the chair. So when we picked the properties along Main Street, we got all of the downtown. So if it wasn't included in this package, then it's already on the register. This is just the first phase. We're gonna keep going down the streets and seeing what we have in those areas. But yeah, if they're not on there, they were included. Yeah.
Good answer. Thank you. Well, that makes me feel better. Good. Okay, so we have a resolution here. I'll read it out. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder to resolve that the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee receive the memo with booklets provided by staff in Appendix A, B, C, and D of this report, and that the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee recommend these properties for addition on the Municipal Heritage Register. I need a mover
Sorry, Councillor.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. Go ahead.
Thank you. I apologize for the another question here, or another comment. It follows your question actually regarding the downtown and the properties that are designated and if they are or aren't. So this is Bianca, this goes back to the status report where staff were going to do a comparison of the Heritage Trust to make sure that everything that's listed on our website that we have designated is included. And that's been an ongoing project since November of 2020. And I did that myself again on the weekend. I've done this the second time I've gone through them to do a comparison. And I think it's really, really critical. It's actually a priority that we do this exercise before we move on with anything else, because it's going to impact the next item on our agenda too when we talk about the RFP thing, because we need our information to be up to date and correct. And I think that what Councillor Dunstall mentioned is what I found on the Heritage Trust was that the Culp block, 5 Main Street West, and the Snetzinger block, 2 to 6 Main Street West, are showing on the trust only as notice of intention, and there is no bylaw. So I don't know if there was some concern back in 2015. There was a number of them in 2015 that kind of fell through the cracks. That's where we got the railroad came up, where it was an intention to designate and the bylaw was never passed, and we had to pass the bylaw in July. So I'm concerned that the Culp block and the Snetzinger block might have only had the notice of intention, and for whatever reason, the bylaw never got followed through with. And they're both from 2015, from September 21st, 2015, and the Heritage Report of July 2015. So I hope we can clean that up quickly. And if there is an oversight, that we get those bylaws in place to ensure those designations are complete. The other thing that came up on that report was the Bank of Commerce is showing on the Heritage Trust as the bylaw to designate saying 37 to 39 Main Street East, but our Heritage property shows it as 35 to 37 Main Street West, sorry, Main Street West. So I just, if we can confirm that again, the information between the trust and our designated heritage properties aligns, I think that should be a priority. And then I provided the information on 239 Workington, the Workington House, 239 Main Street East, which was October 6, 2015 as well. It's like there's a whole bunch of properties in 2015 that kind of just didn't get followed through or fell through the cracks. And that one had the draft heritage report and followed through with an intention to designate in October of 2015. So I really think if there's a way we can prioritize getting those updated, we'll be in a better position when we look at that RFP that's coming forward. Does that make sense, just Bianca?
Yeah, so through the chair, I can comment on the Workington House. I have confirmed that has not been designated. There was not enough information at the time when the designation was being completed. I believe we checked into the 2 blocks there, but we have to check back. We do have a great relationship with the trust, and it will be easy to get a hold of them. So we can follow up with that tomorrow. But I think we double checked with them that all our properties were proper, like that we had a matching. I just want to circle back with those blocks and maybe get an email of confirmation.
That would be great, because they're missing actually on our designated properties list on the website. And I think that even our register says that it was last updated December 2019. So I think, yeah, if we can look at making sure both our registers are also correct, that would be great. Thank you.
So just to note on that, through the chair, that is the last time the register was updated, except for 238 and these 145. So we will be doing a whole update to that, and then we can update that. And I will double check if for those properties if they are designated or not.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bothwell. Kate, did you have a question?
Through you, Councillor Dunstall, to Bianca. I also went through, because I was going to bring forward a list of the downtown buildings. This is about John's question. I also went through it's a little bit confusing, the property numbers downtown, but, and compared it to our designation list, compared it to the registry, and I highlighted, and then I compared it to our new 145 lists and took some off, but I still see some of those buildings not on the registry. So potentially our list online is, this is just what Dorothy's saying, but I am going to send it to you just to confirm that they are in fact on the registry. And if not, then maybe we could add them next month. But there's still a number of, like Crockadoodle, doesn't the building there with the 40, and that doesn't seem to be on. Across the street doesn't seem to be on. So I've got them all on my computer.
So I could just comment on those two for sure, through the chair. So both of those properties have had the Heritage Grant. So they have, I believe they are on the list, but I will double check. But any properties that you notice, please do share. We tried our best to catch them all, but for sure. Thank you so much. That's appreciated.
There, I tried to unmute myself and it wouldn't work. So I'm going to reread the resolution. Resolved that the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee received the memo with booklets provided by staff in Appendix A, B, C, and D of this report, and that the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee recommend these properties for addition to the Municipal Heritage Register. I need a mover. Mayor Jordan. Seconder. Anne, thank you. All in favor? That's carried. The next item on the agenda is 6B, Main Street East Heritage Conservation District request for proposal. Bianca, were you going to talk about that or no? Antonetta, thanks. Go ahead, Antonetta.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So as the committee knows, we have completed this RFP as directed by council for a Heritage Conservation District study along Main Street East. The committee was provided the draft RFP on March 2nd, 2021. We tried to give the committee time to review it. And we're now looking for any comment from the committee on the heritage components of the RFP only. There were some questions about the RFP and sharing it. We reached out to our procurement manager and we talked to the committee about that, and we sent out some emails. RFPs are typically undertaken by professional staff, and they're meant to be directly formatted for heritage conservation districts based on the Ontario Heritage Act. It's actually quite prescriptive. The toolkit and the act tell you what steps you need to go through, and therefore it's best practice to reference and benchmark existing RFPs to ensure that there's consistency with the Ontario Heritage Act. So you'll see it's actually, the RFP says what exactly we need to do with the study in order so that we meet all of our obligations under the Ontario Heritage District. Also, benchmarking was done again with other RFPs to ensure consistency with other communities as it pertains to heritage conservation districts, because it is fairly prescriptive. And we did commit to moving this forward in an expeditious manner. So we're quite pleased to have a draft RFP, and we welcome any comments via email to staff, and we'll take those into consideration, and then we'll follow the proper process to bring the RFP across the finish line in a timely manner. Happy to take
Yeah, thank you, Antoinette. Any questions? Councillor Bothwell?
Thank you, Chair Dunstall. So did I hear from Antonetta that she does not want us to put comments forward now and that we need to do them in writing, or are we able to suggest changes and corrections?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I think the comments are something that require discussion, we can discuss that. But if they're suggestions or corrections that the committee would like to see, I would just recommend we do those via email, just to maintain the integrity of the RFP process and not discuss too much of it in public.
That's why I'm not sure what I can say and what I can't say. There was some errors in the RFP draft, a reference to the village of Alton, for instance. It was like a cut and paste. So it just kind of questions whether some of the other content may have been cut and paste from a previous RFP.
Through you, Mr. Chair, as I mentioned in my introduction, we did look to all other communities who have recently done heritage conservation district studies. Again, they're all very similar because they follow the Act, and the Act prescribes what you need to do as your first step, what you need to do as your second step. And so they do tend to be repetitive. We also reached out to some of our colleagues to see what success they had with the RFP. And the Village of Alton was certainly one that we relied on heavily. It was well done. One of our senior planners was also a planner there at the time, and she was able to see that through. And yes, so if there's any comments of that nature, just send them over to staff. We'll make the adjustments as appropriate, and then we can keep this project moving forward.
So yeah, so then I would suggest that you remove that wording that refers to the historic Village of Alton and change it to the town of Grimsby in the actual RFP, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. If there's a way to add.
And sorry, just to confirm, I believe we checked twice. It says Village, not Alton. It doesn't say Alton in the RFP.
It did, the one we read, both myself and Olia. It said page 11, 3.1, phase 1, HCD study area, historic Village of Alton, village form as well.
Again, sorry, again, through you, Mr. Chair, any minor corrections like that, we're happy to have those changed. Just submit your comments via email to staff, and we will update any errors and also evaluate any comments in terms of the heritage content and compliance with the Act and things of that nature. So yes, please send anything along. Happy to make the appropriate corrections.
Thanks. I have a few more comments. Under 2.2.3.1, I'm wondering if we can add interim control bylaw as the towns that it might be strategies which may be deployed, because there's no mention of potential for an interim control bylaw in there. And I think we did raise that at council. So just some type of wording that puts that in as a potential strategy.
Sure.
Well. There was, it looked like there's some gaps in covering all of the CHLs. So just if the RFP can ensure that it covers in the background section 1, not just the Queen's Lawn, but incorporates all of the 7 actually CHLs that are impacted in the area, and just make sure that's brought forward as well. There's a couple of spots where there's one spot that looks like it refers to the CHL report, but the actual link is not to the CHL report. It's to a different bullet. So just ensuring that they get all the information in the RFP that's relevant would be much appreciated. I think that was it. Other than that, it looked pretty comprehensive. I think that there's a statement about the town's growth allocation may also inform which strategies are deployed, and I'm not too sure how that, would be relevant in this, but those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bothwell. Seeing no further questions, excuse me. I have a resolution resolved that the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee has reviewed the Main Street East Heritage Conservation District request for proposal for its heritage components. I need a mover and a seconder. Yeah, thank you, Kate. And is that your hand, Ann? Okay, I'm going to take it at your second by Ann. All in favor? That's carried. On to the next item. Item C, memo, updated terms of reference for committee and chair recommendations. And who would like to speak on that? Antonetta?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, what you have before you is the terms of reference, proposed terms of reference for the committee. We had a mandate of addressing comments in the Ombudsman report, also to create consistency with other terms of reference for committees within the town, although we acknowledge that the Ontario Heritage Act does prescribe, very specific roles for the committee, and that we also wanted consistency with the Ontario Heritage Act and what they reference. And we also did some benchmarking to determine what you have in front of you. That said, I think before I go any further, I'd like to say what's before the committee is for you to take back, take a look over it. We will walk through, Andrew will walk through why some pieces have been removed and explain, sort of provide some rationale for those decisions. And then we can talk about it more holistically at the next meeting of the Heritage Committee, if you have any comments on the terms of reference. But those were sort of the overarching pieces that we were looking at when we looked at the terms of reference for this committee. And I will hand it over to Andrew, who will share his screen. And we were able to redline the document and highlight some pieces to bring to your attention. And I'll let Andrew do that, and then we can talk about it. But again, our intention is just to share this information with you today and then have the discussion about it once you've had enough time to digest it, because we know the agenda got published on Friday and that there are, a series of proposed changes that we want you to have the appropriate time to take a look at. So we'll take you through some of those pieces with the intention that the discussion is to happen at the next committee meeting. So I'll pass it over to Andrew.
Through you, the chair. Just in my cursory look at this yesterday, I was asked to just take a look through the different terms of reference, the previous terms of reference and the one that was just created to replace the other. Just going through, I did do a red line. I'm just going to go through the new terms of reference just because I think it's easier to explain what we have. So in this new terms of reference, you can see that point 2 is definitions. This was not in the previous TOR. Unfortunately, I can't speak for the clerk that prepared this terms of reference because I didn't create it. I can just tell you what I read and what I can see. So the definitions were added, I think, just for clarity purposes, just going forward. And then if we continue to go down, you can see the yellow highlights. These highlights were given to us by the clerk. We did not add these highlights. When we received this document, this was given to us, and the highlights were in there to show us what had changed.
Yeah, I'll just say, Andrew, I'll just jump in just for a minor correction. These terms of reference were prepared by our previous deputy clerk, who's no longer with the organization, but they were the starting point for the terms of reference.
Thank you, Antonetta. As you can see, the purpose here, the vision, it was vision in the previous terms of reference. So some of the bullets have changed to different terms. I think that's just for clarity purposes when comparing them to other terms of reference throughout the town. There's just that clarity. Mandate was mission in previous TOR. A lot of the verbiage has changed, but I think the same message is still there. Statutory obligations. I think for the purpose of getting out any repetition, you can see here that statutory obligations already existed in the previous terms of reference. Now, what has happened here is that, as you can see under A, parts 1.1.1 and 1.1.2 of the previous terms of reference have been combined. So prior, it would have been listing as its own and removal as its own point under the statutory obligations. Now they've been combined because they share the same verbiage. Parts B here, it is 1.1.3, 1.1.4, and 1.1.5 of the previous terms of reference. They have all been combined into one one point, just because, again, just to get out the repetition, just to really consolidate things and make things a bit more clear. D was in the terms of reference, pretty much as stated. It's just that some of the language has changed just because it was created by someone else. And as you go down the list, most of the bullets on that list had already existed on the terms of reference prior. It's just that there have been some changes made to the verbiage, and a lot of the bullets from the previous terms of reference, they reference the act, and they were just taken from the act, I believe, and put into the document. Here they've just been changed. Non-statutory obligations, again, they were already in the previous terms of reference, condensed down a bit, a lot of the verbiage taken out. As you go down the list, I believe the only thing that is not remaining from the previous terms of reference is that the term for, where is it here? I can't see, sorry, the faces are in my screen. It's budget. Budget was taken out of the non-statutory roles from the previous terms of reference. As we go further down the list, the authority, this is a new section added, I think just highlighting the authority that the committee has and what they can and cannot do. Composition and term was present in the previous term of reference. Again, just verbiage changing, and there's an amended bylaw at the bottom in terms of the member recruitment. As we go down the list, some of the language here has changed, and we have replaced the terms like appoint and elect to recommendation and recommend, because the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee is recommending to council. They don't really elect or appoint. Ultimately, that's council's decision. So ultimately, they are recommending to council for those. As we go further down, as you can see, there is a portion here that staff has recommended that be taken out and replaced with language that is used in other terms of reference within the town. And we've highlighted it there in red for you to view. This section here outlining the chair, the vice chair, and the members of the committee. This has all been added in. This was not there in the previous terms of reference. It's here just to outline the roles of the committee and just to make things and to highlight things and to make it easier for understanding one's roles and responsibilities when being on the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee. So as you can see here, the vice chair, and as we go further down, it highlights the committee members. Previously, in the terms of reference, staff had quite a large portion when looking at that document. Here it's been condensed down. When we benchmarked and looked at other terms of reference throughout the town, there was no section dedicated to staff and their roles and responsibilities in the terms of reference. We understand here that because staff works directly with the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee, that there is that connection, and that there does need to be this this emphasis on staff roles, and we feel that this highlights those roles. And because we now have a full-time heritage planner in Bianca, those roles that were on the previous terms of reference, she already does, and she's already here to take care of those. So we don't need to have those front and present in the terms of reference because she's doing those already. As far as the agenda goes, it's a new heading, just explaining the way the agendas work, same as the minutes and reporting, another new heading that was added. And as we go further down, the meetings portion has been broken up a bit. So this meetings heading has been also broken up to meeting procedures. Quorum was included in the meeting heading last time, but it's been broken down into its own subheading with some more verbiage added. And as we go further down, you can see that voting was newly added to highlight that aspect, as well as a new conflict of interest tab in the terms of reference. And as we go further down, working groups also gets its own heading, which was included in the previous terms of reference, except the language has been updated and expanded upon, as well as conflict of interest, which was included in the previous, just with some language updates. I went through yesterday and I did my best to try and highlight some of the changes that were present in the new terms of reference, because we were asked to do such by the committee. I hope that this highlights some of those changes, and also the old terms of reference were added to the agenda so that you could go back and look at the highlighted sections with the areas that were redlined that were taken out, and the areas that were moved over with, I hope what you can see as an explanation as best as I could in the past 24 hours. So I'd like to thank you for your time, and at this time I'll pass it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Andrew, for your comprehensive report. Are there any questions? Can you clear the screen?
Yep.
We're not going to have comments on it specifically, but seeing none, as I will read the resolution. Committee resolved, the committee take away materials provided by staff for their review and come back to the next Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee meeting prepared for a conversation on the updated terms of reference. Can I get a mover for that? Oh, thank you, Kate. Seconder. Thank you, Anne. All in favor? Thank you. That's carried. Next, updated plaque design. Oh, Andrew, you're going to carry that one too? Go ahead, Andrew.
Sorry, I'm just going to share my screen with everybody so you can see what we had put forward. So through you, the chair, staff has completed this cursory, or sorry, these design options for the designation plaques that we have remaining on our list. Staff had prepared the, town staff prepared final plaques for the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee at their November 19th, 2020 meeting. And we had we were advised by the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee that they wanted town staff to explore a new design incorporating the town crest. So this, what you see here on the screen is the design that we had come up with. Town staff had prepared the new plaque design incorporating the town crest and has provided the designs listed in Appendix A of the memo that you received. Town staff would like to note that the cost of the plaques will differ depending on the size of the town crest on the plaques, and that comes directly from Burlington Signs, who we have been working with. As you can see here, that the crest is at the top of the plaque. The reason for this is it makes it easier when trying to fit all the language on the plaque, because the widest portion of the plaque is directly in the middle. If you put the crest directly in the center of the plaque, it does make it harder to fit in some of the larger names of some of the designated properties. So I just wanted to make note of that. I knew that that may have been a concern in the size of the crest. I'd also like to say that this is just a preliminary design that we would like to bring forward to Burlington Signs so that they can come back to us with the artwork that they created, because I don't have the same programs, or I'm unable to use the software that they may use in order to produce these plaques, I'm very limited in what I can do to be able to show you. So we just wanted to bring these forward to show you our first look at what the plaque would look like and the language that is on the plaques and the verbiage that is on the plaques. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time. There are other plaques that are available in the memo as well. This was just done in order to show you what the rest of those plaques would look like.
Comments for Andrew? Councillor Bothwell?
Thank you again, Chair. It looks great. I think we're going to have a design that's going to work well here. I hear what you're saying, Andrew. Thank you for your work. I'm gathering that the clarity of the crest will be much better than what we're seeing here. Is that right? The detail will be much more once they finalize the prototype, right?
Absolutely. So I have been in conversation with Burlington Signs, and I have sent them the Grimsby crest so that they can produce that crest, and it's the proper art style for them to use within their program so that they can create the best quality possible for our plaque designs. And that's why I would just like to say that by no means we're not finalizing anything here where these are going to be made as soon as we're done this meeting. This is just in an effort so that I can bring something to Burlington Signs so that they can then send me back the artwork so that we can then come to a decision as to whether or not we want to move forward.
Thank you. I would suggest if we're going to use the term like early 20th century, where we say 20th as in 20th, that we consistently use that. You've used that on most of them, but then on the Old Bank of Hamilton, you say 20th century commercial building and you spell out 20th century. Okay. So I think we need to be consistent. Same with late 19th century on the James Willis and Greg House. So I think we just need to be consistent on what we're going to use there. I also noticed on Grimsby Secondary School, I think it just might be an oversight, Edwardian architecture stylings. I think it should be just style, S-T-Y-L-E. So I don't know if we're gonna have a chance to see a final proof anyway, but those are just off the top. And then on Avonlea, I like that you put circa 1922. I just wondered on one of the other ones you put EST. Oh, the Bell Park EST. Does that mean established?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so that
just so you know, all of the language that came out and put on these plaques was taken from the bylaws that were created for the designated properties. So I'd be happy to go back and make sure that they're all reading the same and that they're using the same language, and I'll definitely do that. It was an oversight on my part when I was implementing them into the actual plaques.
No problem. So we'll have another opportunity to look at it anyway once they get finalized, right?
Oh,
yes,
absolutely. Yes.
Okay, great.
Definitely.
Through you,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I can, what we need from the committee is whether they now like this plaque more with the town crest or whether they want to revert back to the bell, because the request of us was they were sort of second guessing the bell and whether or not we should have the town crest. So now I think what we need is a recommendation from the committee on, do we proceed with the plaques with the crest and this new design? We'll sort out all the language and the circa and make sure that's all consistent. But I think the real sort of a recommendation point from the committee to staff is, do you like the crest more than you like the bell? And which can we proceed then to Burlington Signs with? And then we'll finalize all the details and get those all correct.
I love it. I love the town crest, and I love that you're able to capture the detail that we asked for on the plaques, and it looks spaced out well, and I think it looks very professional. So yeah, I really, really appreciate the look, and I think it's going to be very nice on the buildings moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I think, yeah, I don't know if the recommendation asks for a vote, but we'll just need the committee to weigh in if we all agree that the town crest is appropriate.
Yeah, the motion will say that. Is there any other questions out there? I can't see everybody on the screen. Yes, Anne, go ahead.
I was just wondering if we had timing on these.
I believe there is a window that was mentioned in the memo, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
okay, I'm sorry.
If there isn't in the memo, I'd be happy to get back to you with the timing on that.
Okay.
It's all dependent on when we get the finalized artwork back to Burlington Signs, of course.
And then I'll just add also that typically sign companies give you a 6 to 8 week production window, sometimes longer, depends where they are. So staff is ready to go. We're seeking recommendation from the committee on the design. Once we have that finalized, we can run with this as quickly as possible, but then we're going to be subject to Burlington Signs and dealing with their artwork turnaround as well as their production date. So we're ready to go. We're really eager to get these all up and out there. We just need recommendation on the design, again, this new logo with the town crest versus the bell, and then we will make things happen to the best of our ability and work with Burlington Signs. We're hoping that because we're going to be putting through quite a few, we'll achieve sort of an economies of scale, hopefully try and get a better price for the plaques, but also get on the top of their priority list to have them produced. And those are things, once we know a timeline, we'll of course update you through our regular, our meetings to let you know when we have a more firm timeline.
Okay, just based on my observation, I would agree with what Councillor Bothwell said about the irregularities in font and whatnot. And I like this design though. I like it better than what I've seen before. So
Good. Seeing no further questions, I have a motion or a resolution. And let me read the resolution. Resolved that the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee. Oh, sorry, Kate.
I had a quick comment too, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Just go right ahead, Kate. I couldn't see you on the screen. Sorry.
No, okay. Through you, Councillor Dunstall, I too like the design better than the bell. And the only comment, and again, planning staff has spoken to it. I'd love to see before it goes to press. There's a number of them with orphan words sitting alone on a line. Love to clean that up. Different sizes of fonts. The 1925 being a totally different font. Some of them being capped, some of them not being capped. I'd love to just clean up the consistency, spacing of the letting, and just make it nice and tidy. I know that these signs won't be in the proximity to each other, but it would be lovely to be nice and tidy that way. But love the design. Good work.
Yeah. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll just add, once we get this all done and the artwork is finalized and the committee endorses it, we can have that now as our template going forward in terms of font size, font, etc. And then we have a standardized plaque moving forward, which will make this process much more quick when we move forward with other plaques. We also want to share, we are throwing around the idea, given what's happening with COVID, we'll have to pivot, but we'd like to have a public ceremony for the distribution of the plaques, kind of what I was talking about earlier, really recognizing heritage property owners. So we're working on some of that in the background as well. And if we're able to make any headway on that and just get a better understanding of what we could do that would still be meaningful with heritage property owners, we'll come back to the committee with some of those ideas as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, I'll read the resolution that the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee recommends that the new standardized plaque design, the town crest, as shown in Appendix A of this memo, be implemented for all future designation plaques, and that Burlington Signs be used as the supplier for new standardized plaques. I need a mover. Thank you, Councillor Bothwell. And a seconder. Thank you, Kate. All in favor? Thank you, that's carried. We'll skip over 314 Main Street East on the agenda because we've already covered that with the elevation. So we got the status report. Bianca, do you want to give us the old update on the status report? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Through the chair, I can share my screen and we can go over it. I have highlighted once again the items in yellow. I will try and make the screen bigger so I can see everyone in case anyone puts their hand up. So these are all the updates to the designation reports. So we've just noted the ones that have received an objection. And actually, this is not new. We've already talked about this one. 130, the bylaws are being prepared. 104, we received the appeal. That'll show up on the next page. And then 224 is the Udell House, and that one we didn't receive an appeal with either, so we'll just be moving forward with the bylaw for that one. Andrew just went over all the plaques with you guys. I do have an update on the Grimsby Remembers plaques. So we finally received the locates from Call Before You Dig. And we are now talking with Sidel there at the plaque company about the installation. We're just determining if the ground is too frozen right now to put them in, but the locates have been done. We have the stakes in their position. So we just have to send all that information over, and then they'll let us know timelines on delivering those plaques. And the monies allocated to that were put into the reserve, so it doesn't come out of this year's budget. The heritage tool is something we continue to work on. We do have the designation reports pretty much found at this point. We're just in the process of digitalizing them all, and we do have the bylaws on the website in the meantime. And we do have some students, but they aren't able to come in because of COVID. So we're hoping to get that moving along. The Heritage Register, we've just put in here that we have the large inclusion, but we do ask the committee to keep bringing properties forward. And then 78 Livingston, again, we can't do much more until the archives open up again, and that has been started. 242, we have received the photographs. I just have to circulate them to you. So I will send those via email, add those to the list. 36 Ontario, I'll speak to all of these. 38, 33 Livingston. All the homeowners have, I've talked to all of them. They are aware of what's going on. So essentially the archives are closed, and because they're artifacts, they can't be decontaminated. Obviously, they're very sensitive material. So they have closed, and we aren't able to get in. So I have relayed that to all the property owners. Again, the removal from the register, there's no statutory timeline. So unfortunately, they will just have to wait until the archives open, but we've done all we can internally. And then 240 to 248, we received your comments. I circulated some responses to some of the questions from our lead planner. And I haven't heard back on that one just yet. Please let me know if you have any additional comments on that. And then 133, we have already talked about. Foundations have been secured for the winter, and we continue to monitor the site. And the last item was just on the crests, which we've just discussed. So I don't know if anyone has any questions on any of those.
Seeing no questions. Oh, Kate, go ahead.
So I'm just gonna act like a broken record again. Sorry, guys, but we are going. I mentioned last meeting that I wanted to add the barn on 36. I think it's 36 Ontario Street, to that the town is looking into protect the fence and the barn. I'm kind of hoping that can be added. And I know that our archives are closed. We did get a extensive report from the Historical Society on that fence. My major concern about pushing this fence is that I don't know how far away we are from having the century condos begin, but Ontario Street, I would assume, would be a thoroughfare concrete trucks going up and down, and supplies. And again, I don't know. And if they will be going down Ontario Street or Main Street, but I just want to have some sort of plan to protect an 1870s fence when we've got rock formations in town that are from 1919 and some here in Grimsby Beach that are protected from 1939. But this fence is very important. And I'm not saying not to go down Ontario Street. I'm just saying there's got to be a way that we can build a structure around it, and we're not going to stop the condo development but it would be lovely to be proactive to protect the fence and move forward with the condo development. So I'm just gonna, I know that you guys can't do more than you can, but the vibrations of trucks have been, do affect these, and the fence is right beside the sidewalk, but again, point of difference, there are not a lot of rock barns, and we've got one. So I really feel that it's important to put the rock barn on the list that you guys are looking to protect it, but also move forward before we start trucks going up and down that street, or even come up with a plan. So
through the chair, so both of the properties at 36 and 38 are on the register. So under the Ontario Heritage Act, these protected properties that hold status, it's real property. So anything within that coordinate of the lot is protected by the act. So we have received the research from the archives, but we do need to vet it ourselves, as we'll be the ones that go before the Conservation Review Board. So we have to vet all information. We've started the review on these. We do have designation reports formatted, but we can't move forward until we can vet all information. So we do have a plan, but unfortunately with the closures, it's just, we can't move forward just yet. But the actual structure behind the house, the fence, it's all protected right now as a registered property.
through you, Councillor Dunstall. So does that mean that we're not going to build the century condo before you can do it? You know what I mean? Like there's separate situations, like that house and that fence are separate from something else that's going through planning. And so if we can't move forward in protecting this fence, do we move forward with this? You know what I mean? Like I know that they're protected, but you know, like.
Through you, the chair. So the only thing I can recommend at this point, I can continue to monitor it. It is private property, so I can reach out to the property owners and see if they would be interested in me putting in some of those, or I guess overseeing the installation of some of those glass and epoxy. And then we can keep an eye if the glass does crack or fracture, then we'll know movement is happening. That would be my best recommendation at this point until we can finish our review.
When we talked about this house being designated and this fence and the barn, these homeowners rejected even being on the registry. So potentially that won't be an option either. So through the chair, homeowners can appeal right now under the Ontario Heritage Act. Once it goes to the Conservation Review Board, they will review for significance, and then that recommendation will be brought to council, but council ultimately makes the decision on the protection of those
really tight to get there because it's
attributes. So sorry, just circle back where I was. Yeah, so the Conservation Review Board would review same way we're doing, but we have to be able to defend all of our arguments. So that's why all of the information has to be vetted by us, because our names are on the reports and we have to legally speak to all of the items. So we're really thankful to have the research because it gives us a starting point, but we do have to go and vet all of that. But ultimately council would make the decision if the Heritage Act stays as it in its current form. We'll see what comes with the Bill 108 changes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I could also add that if the property were designated and let's say the owner didn't object and everything went smoothly, it would be very challenging to use the designation under the Ontario Heritage Act to stop the vibrational impacts. So it's a bit of a challenging situation, and I think we can take that back and give some thought to it. And as we said last time, we talked with our public works team to see what other options we can look at to determine whether it was on sort of the town right of way or whether the property owner owned it. So we can continue to investigate, but certainly if the committee has any ideas they want to put forward, we're really open to any suggestions to explore to see what can be done for the fence there in particular. I'm thinking out loud. I'm not sure if it's doable if we can identify a construction route whereby the large trucks would have to go. I have some experience doing that, but it is in areas that are less tight. So our downtown will be quite tight when the construction starts. So that's why I'm hesitant to put that forward. I just don't know how achievable that is. And I don't want to promise something that potentially we won't be able to deliver on, but we could look at some of those options as well.
Thank you, Kate. Mayor Jordan, you have a comment or question?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair, to Bianca. I'm just wondering about Avonlea, when we're going to see the corrected and updated information attached to that file.
Sorry, I was muted. So through you, the chair, I just wanted to clarify, was that the plaque or the research report?
Just the correct research report.
Yeah, so through you, the chair, we have, we're thinking to just move forward with the reports we have like digitalized, because some of the old ones are, they all need to be scanned in. So we're gonna start doing that, just putting in the ones we can actually we have access to right now. So that is a project we have highlighted. And the plaques, Andrew gave an update on, those will be moving forward in the coming months. So hopefully we can get that on Avonlea sooner than later, but I will let you know once the designation reports are on the website.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
Seeing no further questions, I'll read out the resolution. Resolved that the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee receive the status report and activity report. Can I get a mover and seconder? Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Dorothy. All in favor? Thank you. That's carried. I believe the next item is correspondence. There is no correspondence other than the one letter from DeSantis, but we discussed that already. So the next item is our next meeting, which is on April the 13th, 2021 at 6 p.m. And I would imagine it's still Zoom video until we're all vaccinated. I want to thank everybody for their attendance and their thoughts and ideas, and wish everybody a good night. And this meeting is now adjourned. Good night.